Hey friends, thanks for joining us on Awakening and Relating.
I'm Kayla.
I'm Brad.
Join us as we unpack deep awakenings, navigate relationship consciously, and further awaken through the body with intimacy.
Here we go. Welcome, family. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about ayahuasca. Something I think we have to say for YouTube purposes is that we're not condoning the use of or telling anyone to go out and try any type of substance at all. This is just to discuss our personal experience with ayahuasca over the last several years, what it's done for us, and just to put out some information on it, from our own personal experience. Additionally, kind of spoiler alert, we spent some years working at an ayahuasca church, which isn't around anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But something new is coming soon. So, and we'll be sponsoring, or how do we want to say this? Supporting
a new
organization that will help people come to ayahuasca.
Yeah.
So again, kind of spoiler alert, more information. Stay tuned. We'll get you informed when we have more information. So, for those who are unfamiliar, ayahuasca is an ancient kind of brew that comes out of the Amazon. The indigenous say, like, the plants found them. It's very odd. It's the combination of a couple of plants, and it doesn't taste good. You don't
No.
take it does not taste good. You don't take much, and it gives you a very intense spiritual experience. For most people, it's very spiritual. It can be the thing that leads you to meet the Creator. For a lot of people, it will be the thing that will help them somehow become one again with the Creator, whatever the Creator is for you. Like, you call it whatever you will, right? Once you've experienced it, it's profound. It's mind-blowing. There is no coming back from that experience. You cannot put that genie back in the bottle, no matter how hard you try. So, it's something that I'm very happy that I found in this lifetime. I first sat with ayahuasca about 5 years ago and was shocked at how deep the experience was, and very quickly recognized, because I had an awakening back in 2017. I think I've mentioned that before on the podcast, but my awakening came through suffering. It had nothing to do with any type of plants or psychedelics or anything. It was a dead sober experience, sitting on my couch one night suffering, and finally I let go. I noticed very quickly that after I sat with ayahuasca several years after that awakening, that it can provide that same profound union with the one. Something that came up in a meditation once for me, I came out of a meditation and I just sat up and I said, the all. And whatever it is we're talking about, God, Shiva, Allah, the universe, consciousness itself, whatever it is, once it's experienced through your form, you can never unexperience that. And ayahuasca can give you a very high probability of being able to have that type of experience. So,
yeah, it's important to note too that it's just a tool.
Oh yes,
just a tool, a sacrament that can open you up to those possibilities.
Absolutely.
Like, it may not work for everyone.
I don't think it will work for everyone, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes you hear people talk about the calling to ayahuasca, and that's a real thing. Like, you start to feel this urge. It's almost like it's calling to you. So yeah, it won't work for everyone, and you're absolutely right. It is a tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to put that out there.
Yeah.
And even like my experiences, when we go into it more, I kind of explain like my belief in that too.
Yeah, because some people see it as the answer. I don't think it's the answer.
I don't think it is either.
It's not the answer. It's a very useful and functional tool to allowing you to put down your conditioning, your baggage, and if you are one of the lucky ones, it will allow you to let go completely into the abyss, and you will become one with all things, and in a way meet the Creator. It's not because it's not a thing, right? It's not like a being that you go meet. It's not a thing. It's not a place. It's everything. And you become part of that everything. And so it's interesting. It gets tough to talk about, just like awakening gets challenging to talk about. But ayahuasca experiences are very, very profound. They're generally very deep. And if you're not ready for it, it will scare the shit out of you. It will be very terrifying if you haven't prepared. And let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what does preparation for ayahuasca even look like for most? Like, if it's, even if it's indigenous, I have a friend that just came back from the jungle, and I've had a lot of friends go to the jungle. They eat a certain way, right? They usually spend some time alone getting their psychology and their mind in the right place. And then you go sit down with the sacrament, you know, and I call it a sacrament. Some people call it medicine. I don't think it's a medicine. It's certainly not a Western type of medicine. It is definitely a sacrament. It is ancient, and it is imbued with some sort of spirit. If any of you out there have ever sat with ayahuasca, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, that's okay. You'll either know one day when you sit with it or not. But it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tool to help you awaken more deeply to the spiritual nature of what you truly are.
Like in a way, it's not even giving you or showing you anything that you don't already have. It's just helping open the doorways to be able to see things a little more beyond the scope of what you can see now.
I agree with you. It's not giving you anything new. If it's doing anything, if I had to try to sum it up, what it's doing is it's releasing, or giving you the opportunity to release your grip on who you think you are, right? Mm-hmm. The voice in your head, the attachment to your body, the attachment to your story and your conditioning. And it loosens that grip up in such a way that you can experience reality unfiltered by all of your past conditioning, mm-hmm. right? And society's conditioning. And again, who you think you are. And so
pointing in the direction, like a guidance, it's pointing in the direction of something else, trying to show you, to reveal to you that there's something here that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, for sure.
Or felt, experienced.
For sure. And for everybody, that's going to be different, right? Because as you unwrap this sense of your person, right? As this thing comes unspun, because there's an infinite number of ways to awaken to the truth, to the deepest states of reality, right? To who you are. And ayahuasca starts to kind of free some stuff up. And in doing so, you're going to experience, like, everybody's experience with ayahuasca is different, right? There are no two, we call them journeys, right? There are no two journeys that are alike. Mm-hmm. Personally, I've sat in dozens of ceremonies. I facilitated literally hundreds of ceremonies, and no two journeys are alike, but they all will, especially the ones that lead to a deep breakthrough. No matter how you get there, the sense of oneness is the same, right? And for some people, for you, for example, it led you to what you needed to do in the real world, right? So that you could start experiencing freedom from the small self. Right?
Yeah. So
small self.
So I had come to ayahuasca in like 2020 or 2021. Mm-hmm. Just fell into it, had no idea what I was doing or getting into. Somebody who just like recommended me to go, and mm-hmm. I was like, okay. And then it was like instantly, like that first time, it was just like showing me all of the patterns and how I was living in a real life loop. Then I had periodically came back to ayahuasca ceremony, and at some point my experiences came very sexual.
Yeah.
Like very, very sexual. It scared me at first, but then the more that I kind of came into it, as I got into it, I realized that what it was doing was it was pointing me to my sexuality. And in that way, ayahuasca was very beneficial for me to open up. But this is why I say it's not the answer.
Right. It's a tool because, like, you also, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, is that you have experienced a lot of kind of sexual trauma. you
Mm-hmm.
know, and so it pointed you in a direction so that you could unravel and let go of that sexual trauma, right? Because ultimately that's all this game is. The game of awakening is the game of letting go, right? And just being here now. And so for you, it was to unravel your sexual trauma so you could experience presence, and through that. And so for me, it was totally different. Mine was a mind game, you know, and I had already had an awakening by the time I had come to ayahuasca, but it was still a game of the mind where it wasn't that I was reliving trauma necessarily. It's just that I couldn't let go of a past. And I would use that past to inform my now in such a way that I would just constantly be in this state of depression. And so, you know, my journeys would often, well, actually, all of them eventually lead to um, expansiveness into all things and becoming one with all beings, all things, everything, even the space between the things, right? And somehow outside of space and time. Like what I am most fundamentally is prior to space and time. Um, and so the interesting part about ayahuasca is it doesn't matter how you get there. It may give you messages on, like in your case, what to do in the real world, right? To let go more deeply and experience presence and experience who you are at its most fundamental state. Um, but, you know, I've experienced a lot of people coming to the sacrament and sitting with it and saying that they saw something terrifying, right? And they're afraid that it's the truth. And I wouldn't say that. I would say that, you know, ayahuasca will show you what you need to see so that you can further your growth and awaken more deeply and, you know, start to commune more deeply with the creator and you know, furthermore, become that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Become that freedom that is that life that's unfolding unencumbered by conditioning, you know? And so for some people, for most people, it's not a fun ride. You know, let's put that out there. Ayahuasca is not generally fun. Especially if you're a Westerner and you carry around a lot of trauma. Like you're not going to sit on a mat and have a blast. Let's face it, ayahuasca is probably going to make you throw up. There's going to be several bathroom visits for most people. Energetically, it's exhausting. It's a challenge, right? I mean, is there anything I'm missing here?
No, it's I
I don't
feel
want
like
to.
there's a lot of focus on the purge, but
Yeah,
purge is not
it's not
just
just vomiting.
vomiting.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all different ranges, like shaking,
yeah,
laughing, crying,
yawning.
screaming.
Yeah, but something's coming undone. The way I try to describe it to people that have not sat with ayahuasca and want to know, you know, well, what am I going to do? I don't want to purge, you know, I don't want to throw up. Well, you may not, but the purge itself is it's a letting go. And for some people that is physical, right? You may be in the bathroom, you may be in a bucket throwing up. For other people, it's very energetic, like the shaking that you mentioned, yawning, crying, laughing. It can be very,
Mm-hmm.
very energetic. Um, and then there's like the spiritual like side of purging, which can feel like something is either entering or leaving your form, right? You're either letting go or letting in something. Again, we're not condoning the use of ayahuasca, just trying to describe the experience. And both of us have had a lot of experience in ayahuasca ceremonies, both being part of and facilitating ayahuasca ceremonies. And they're beautiful, but for most people, they're very challenging. The interesting part about ayahuasca is that it does have some real world aspects that, like I'll point out here, it's something that you get better at. Like leaning into the experience. I always told people this, lean into your experience, right? But that's very challenging if you're first time sitting down with ayahuasca,
Mm-hmm.
because first of all, you don't really know what leaning in means, right? It's
And
some
letting go.
and letting
Like
go.
what the fuck?
Right, right.
What
What
does
is
let go mean?
right? Okay, I'm letting go now. I'm letting go. Nothing's happening. I'm letting go. Um, but to let go into the experience and really lean in to allow the experience to be whatever it is without judgment, right? Without the need for it to change and be fully present. And so you learn a lot through that, but you do get better at coming to the sacrament and sitting and allowing it to show you. Because for some people, it's almost like you have to take enough so that it grinds you to dust.
Even going in like that is still a risk. Like, because
Yeah.
I've tried to go. in with it. Like, I'm ready to just fully experience all the things that you talk about with ayahuasca. And it's like, I was like taking heavy doses, and it, even still, I couldn't
let go.
I was still resisting so much.
Yeah. And I would say, again, after you've sat with it several times, you come to this space where you start to recognize that less is more. It's instead of looking at it like it's going to provide me the answer, you're like, oh, this is a tool so that I can let go into this experience. And so after you've sat with it a few times, usually you start to recognize that, oh, I don't need a big dose of this stuff, right? I need just enough to loosen up my ego structure so that I can let go. And that letting go, that sense of letting go, takes a while for some people to cultivate. Some people, I know people personally that have sat on ayahuasca mats over 100 times before they've experienced becoming one with all. And I've also met people that have sat with it their first time, and they're like, boom, that's it. I got the message. I know who I am. I'm free. And this is, again, a freedom that you cannot describe in words, because it's free from the small self. It's free from the ego structure.
Well, this is important, like going back to how like it's not working for everybody, not the answer, because I've never had one of those experiences. And it's like, I could keep going back to ayahuasca to try to get that experience, but until you're ready to experience it, it's not going to come. And it may just not be coming through ayahuasca.
For you, it gave you the tools to experience presence outside of the sacrament.
And then since then, deepening into my sexuality and pleasure and presence in that, those are when I'm actually going to higher states, more of that blip nothingness feeling without ayahuasca at all.
Right, entering the void without any type of assistance.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, that's what I think ayahuasca leads us all back to, is there's something more going on. You are part of some type of spiritual, underlying, all-knowing, eternal thing, which isn't a thing. There's just a harder way I don't know how to point at it otherwise. And if you can experience yourself as that, you're free. But it may just simply show you, like in your case, hey, go do these things, and you'll find freedom there. For some people, the release is so profound during the ceremony itself that they experience it right there. But then the trick is you become a seeker for the truth, because what that will generally do is point you in a direction where you're like, okay, something more is going on here. There is some kind of God, whatever you want to call it. I seem to be an aspect of that or a manifestation of that, but now I want to feel like that all the time, because it feels so good. Like this freedom that we're talking about, doesn't matter how many words you wrap around it, you can't convey it in words. The Bible calls it ineffable. You cannot discuss it. It's the thing that can't be said, but it can be experienced through form. And so for many, they'll come sit with ayahuasca and they'll get the experience of, oh, I'm it. And then they'll seek, right? And then they'll seek and they'll seek and they'll seek until they finally let go into the recognition that they are already the thing that they're searching for. But for some, they'll sit and it'll just be, hey, go do this thing, right? Let go of these patterns, or you'll notice that you're carrying baggage. Maybe you come out of your ayahuasca ceremony and you're like, hey, I put down shame. Maybe that's the only thing you put down. You don't carry shame around any longer. But in that, you'll start to recognize that, well, if shame was a pattern, maybe guilt's a pattern too, right? Maybe all of the suffering that I currently have is based on patterns. And then you can start to open more deeply. Yeah. It's beautiful stuff, but it is challenging. It is very challenging. And I think if anybody chooses to go sit with ayahuasca, they need to make some smart decisions. You and I were just recently down at Kenedelic, and I was on a panel talking about, plants and how they can help us. And one of the most important things when you sit with ayahuasca or anything is knowing who you're doing this work with, right? Knowing the people, understanding their background, where did this sacrament come from to begin with, who made it, how many people have you helped through this already? Is this your first week on the job and you're feeding me ayahuasca, right? Like, that's okay. I don't know if I'm ready for that. That might be a little dicey. So,
and it's not safe to just get online and do it
no,
home by
no,
yourself.
please, for the love of God, nobody ever try to sit with ayahuasca alone. It's not something, and I think it's funny that I've had people that have not sat with ayahuasca go, well, I mean, it's probably addicting. And for anyone who has sat with ayahuasca, you know what I'm talking about. There's no way. There's no possible way, because it's such a physically demanding experience. Like, people have to walk you to the bathroom. Do you know how many people I've carried to and sat on a toilet? More than I can count, because you can't walk. You have no sense of direction sometimes you're not here. You're not here.
So ayahuasca isn't addictive, but what becomes addictive is where this translates through.
Yes.
Is that the people are addicted, to the chase, to the seeking, that they think the ayahuasca is going to be the answer and give them the answers. So they just go back to it, and you see a pattern with, as well as they're also doing other psychedelics, and they're searching for something, but that's the addictiveness almost. And
that's the seeker energy, right?
Yeah.
Like I've learned something new, but I hear other people talk about the sense of freedom that I haven't experienced yet. So I need to go get back on the mat. I need to go get back on the mat. But the same thing's true about other modalities, right? Like, I hear that in meditation, I can let go and become one with all things and be set free and meet the creator. Okay, so the next time I sit in meditation, that's the trick of the mind, putting this thing out into the future. And so, although it's not addictive, like, you can't sit with ayahuasca. Like, I mean, you have to have somebody watch you. Absolutely. You have to have somebody experienced watch you. You do not want to try this at home alone ever. I would never condone that in any way, shape, or form. So don't go buy it online. Don't try it at home. Don't get some and sit with your friends and be like, hey, we're going to do this thing. You need somebody experienced, because sometimes these things get really deep, and sometimes the realms or dimensions or beings that you are, communing with are outside of the scope of the mind. And although the body may still be here, where you are, where your consciousness is somewhere else.
Yeah. And it brings back to, like, the safety of it, like telling people your experiences. Like, if you're not doing it in a setting that is safe for you to express your experiences, people are going to be like, what the fuck? Like, one of my experiences, I got taken, my alien family came and took me onto the ship.
The spaceship, Rexicon.
Called the Rexitron.
Rexitron or Rexicon?
Rexitron.
Yeah.
And they showed me my ship, my home, so I met my family, and then they laid me on a table and electrocuted me.
Yeah.
And so if I say that to anybody, they're just going to be like, huh?
Yeah, clearly you were on some kind of drug.
This woman needs to go to the psychiatric hospital.
Somebody needs to put her in some type of jacket where she can't move, and we just need to feed her medication. It's ayahuasca is very, very interesting, but some of the journeys that you hear a lot about are aliens, insects, tentacles, eyeballs, and God. Right? Like, so it like, there seems to be levels to it. Like, if you have the God mode experience, like, it's kind of all the way. Like, you've skipped all the other stuff, right? But on the way to that, you can have experiences of very odd things, aliens being one of them. And I've heard that a lot. Like, people are like, yeah, it popped up in my head and worked on my brain and fixed things. Now I don't, feel shame or fear anymore. I'm like, well, that's wonderful, But science is working more to get their hands around psychedelics, because even, like, pharmaceutical companies are chasing psilocybin like crazy right now, because psilocybin's like 80+% effective on depression, where SSRIs are like 15%, at best. And they cause all of these other problems. And you have to take them daily versus like psilocybin, where you have to take like maybe twice a year, And again, not condoning any of the use of this stuff, especially outside of any type of safe setting. But ayahuasca is so profound. I can't even count how many people I have seen that came in so depressed that, you know, they might not make it another week.
Being actually told
to my face that if this doesn't work,
yeah,
you know, I've tried everything else. I've been medicated. I've been to talk therapy. I've done this. I've done that. And they have a deep enough journey where they let go and they become one with the Creator. And in doing so, they recognize that their problems that they carry around are part of this small self, this tightly wound energy that is like the sense of a person. And because they can see that as part of the illusion, what I think the Hindus or the Buddhists call Maya, you know, the illusion of the mind, when you can see that and you know that you are most fundamentally life itself, you know, appearing in this so-called 3D space, the problems, although problems don't go away, the way you interact with them is different. And it's very free and it's very flowy and it's with grace.
Yeah, it's like they don't have the hooks.
Yes, they don't have that, that grab you and yank you down into this state of depression or anxiety or rage. You know, one of the things I experienced before my awakening was rage. And the only way I can describe rage is that it's a sensation in your chest that no amount of 4-letter words can, you know, help you describe. Like you can't quite describe it because it's just so, you know, you want to freak out. And I know a lot of people experience that. And I'm not saying, you know, go sit with ayahuasca for that reason. I think if anybody chooses to go sit with ayahuasca, they need to do the research. They need to make sure that the place they're going is safe. The people that are offering the sacrament absolutely know what they're doing and they've done this before. They're not new, you know, they've been doing it for years, hopefully. And it's, and if done right, it is certainly safe. If done correctly, it can be profound. And if you are one of the lucky ones, you know, I'll call it that, then you will have that breakthrough to oneness. And when that occurs, you're totally free. Life will forever be changed. You'll never suffer again. Not in a way that you have before.
My relationship with ayahuasca now is really like a deep, beautiful relationship where I'm not reliant on her for anything or the sacrament to show me anything, but we haven't. I've built this relationship where I know that when I feel the call, like maybe every 1 to 2 years, even then I will sit in ceremony, but it's not something that I'm continuously doing. And I think that we've talked about this before. I think there gets to be a point. So I've experienced in probably over 20 to 30 ceremonies individually myself drinking ayahuasca. And recently I had drank and I kind of like talked to you about my experience, how I went to this pace. My experiences got so different. Like they had been the sexual ones, and then I had done all this work sexually, and then my experience shifted to this almost nothingness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we've kind of talked about, like, I think not that you get to a certain level where you don't, like, you're like evolved or something, but I think you get to this certain place eventually where it's not like I'm holding on to a bunch of past things. Yeah. And so you get to this place where it's like just being with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm at a point in my journey as well where, you know, Ram Dass talked about this a couple of times in his lectures. There comes a time where you recognize that all of these things that you're doing, all of these tools that you're using, right? Whether it's sitting on a mat and taking the sacrament ayahuasca, or whether it's sitting on a mat and meditating, or whether it's breath work, or whether it's yoga, or whether it's reading mystical teachings, or whatever your modality, you start to recognize that even if you do reach higher states of consciousness through those methods, that you're using, like the final hook is that you're using the method as a tool to experience who you really are. And eventually you have to also let go of the method, right? And just be. And so I'm at a space in my journey where, for the most part, and you and I went on a walk this morning and I was talking about this, like I can experience deep states of awareness and notice the character seemingly displayed on the screen of awareness. And awareness is free of everything, right? It's free of emotion, it's free of opinion, it's free of even the label of male or female. It just is, right? And so at a certain point, whether you're using ayahuasca as your modality or any other modality, there comes a time where you have to let go of the modality. And it's not that it's no longer useful, like you're saying. Like if you feel the need to go back and sit down on a mat and you feel that calling, then maybe that's time to go for, you know, a tune-up, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that you would want to even stay on long term. It doesn't work like that. You know, Jay Krishnamurti used to talk about the fact that people would ask him about a method, and he would almost, I don't want to say he'd get upset, but he'd kind of jokingly laugh, and he's like, there is no method. Like, you're already doing it. Like, you're already the one experiencing itself as this that you call your person, feeling like you're not connected to the one, and you're free to feel disconnected from the one. Like, you don't have to feel connected to it. That doesn't mean that you're not already it. And so there is ultimately no method. You'll have to eventually let go of the method. And if that method is sitting with ayahuasca, eventually you'll have to let go of that. Just like you'll eventually have to let go of meditation or whatever else you're using. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So the experiences that we've witnessed as facilitators and the work that we were doing for years is, it's just like, to be able to witness, like you were saying, people going from like the last day to full of life.
Mm-hmm. And then it's a miracle.
Yeah.
It's literally what, like, you would define as a miracle. Like, for the last several years of my life, I have literally spent almost every weekend in a space where I can witness miracles. What a blessing. Mm-hmm. You know, what a blessing. Like, to watch somebody go from, I have no gas left in the tank, there's no will to live, there is no light at the end of the tunnel, hope is just another 4-letter word, you know, and to see them 2 days later beaming with light, smiling, heart wide open, just in love with all the people and things around them, and experiencing joy for maybe the first time in 10 or 20 years. I can't tell you how many people have, like, I haven't cracked a smile in 20 years. And they're hugging people and laughing and just enjoying the fact that they're here in form, experiencing life. Mm-hmm. It's so profound. It's so beautiful. I just feel so blessed to have been part of it. Mm-hmm. You know?
I also see people that I'm just like, I wish you could experience it. Mm-hmm. And you could know, like, the people that have absolutely no clue. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I can see it in their faces. Like, do you know that what if you didn't have to do that anymore? And this is a tool that can help connect the dots.
It happened with my father. He died last year, and I have been in and around ayahuasca ceremonies for about the last 5 years, the last 3 years intimately involved. But I remember after my first sit with the Sacrament, I thought, wow, because my dad was a Vietnam vet. He had a lot of survivor's guilt, you know, like all of his buddies were killed when he went, you know, home for a brief holiday. And so, yeah, he drank every day. Like, he was a functional alcoholic, but he drank every single day. And you could see the sadness, you know, even as a father, and he did his best, and I love him. And, you know, thanks, Dad, for being part of my journey. Awesome dad. But he would numb himself out every day, because there was essentially demons in there, if you would, like, right, these haunting memories that he couldn't stand to face. And I have seen veterans sit with ayahuasca and let go of all of it. I have a good personal friend that was literally blown up in Afghanistan, blown up in a building, lost a bunch of his buddies, and recently spoke to him. And I said, hey, you know, he's showing me some of the memorabilia, some of the stuff that, you know, actually he went, like, he's like, oh, I was wearing this when I got blown to shit. And I'm like, does any of that bother you anymore? And he's like, no, not at all. He's like, just, you know, blessed feel gratitude for it being, part of my journey, because it's brought me here. And so awakening itself will bring you that. Ayahuasca is an effective tool to help you awaken to your true nature, which is, essentially God, however you want to put it. But yeah, it's so profound. It's so beautiful. And it is not something to be messed with. You have to enter these spaces with respect, and you have to do it with somebody that absolutely has a good head on their shoulders, and they've done this before, and they understand the deep, deep nature of what this work is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so again, one of the things I want to throw out, that stay tuned, folks. New ceremony spaces coming soon. Stay tuned, subscribe to the channel. We'll be putting out updates shortly. And, hopefully we can all be back in a beautiful ceremony space soon.
Yeah.
Sitting with Mother Ayahuasca.
New beginnings.
It's, I know a lot of people out there are sad, and I'm not going to dig too deep into it, but, Kayla, both you and I worked at a church that offered some profound awakenings for thousands and thousands of people over the years, and that is no more. And that's okay. As one chapter closes, another one opens. And it's the allowing of that chapter to close that will give us the space for the new one to open. And it's okay for you guys out there to experience sadness or a sense of loss. Those are human emotions. Hell, you're in human form, might as well human, but experience that stuff fully and then let it go. Don't drag it around and make it part of a past that you will miss, because if you keep dipping back into that well, you will eventually become depressed, right? Or at least experience a light or slight version of it, depending on how much time you do spend in the past. So,
and what you're actually experiencing in those moments there is just your own experiencing, which you can experience in all other places and all other situations.
Absolutely.
So just don't attach to the place.
Yeah, don't attach to the physicality of the place and its geography. There are other spaces, and best advice I can give anyone is be present and be here now, right? If you're experiencing a sense of loss, experience that loss. If you're experiencing sadness, experience that sadness. But do that now and then let it go. And you don't have to continuously revisit it as it passes. Let it pass. So that said, yeah, again, family, I love you guys so much. Thank you all for being part of Kayla and I's journey here. And we'll keep you posted on what's coming over the next couple of weeks, probably. Yeah, should have more to talk about. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Awakening and Relating.
Please like, share, and subscribe, and drop your comments below.
We'll see you soon.